Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. This is episode 60, and I'm your host, Brian Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The online information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. Be sure to like and share the program as well. You can also support the program by going to Anchor FM or Spotify and clicking the support button. Do you own a business? Do you want exposure? Do you want to be heard? Let me help you advertise your business right here on this podcast. Program sponsorships include a custom written script to advertise your business to its fullest potential. Email me directly at thetallybill@gmail.com and let's set up an impactful advertising plan to help you and your business get the results you're looking for. Again, email me directly at thetallybill@gmail.com. That's thetallybill@gmail.com. And let's get started today. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. A U.S. Army combat veteran, a Native Houstonian, and a transition strategist who helps veterans discover their next mission in life. After the military, William Garay Jr. found a passion for serving others and became the director of programs for Impact a Hero, a veteran service organization whose mission is making a positive impact on the lives of veterans, active service members, and their families through advancing leadership in personal development, strengthening community, and encouraging esprit de corps. He took and facilitated leadership in financial programs, led community outreach, and ran the grant program for veterans. Although he's no longer working with Impact a Hero, he continues to serve the community and the veteran community and shares the story of veterans overcoming adversity on Charlie Mike, the podcast. And with that, we are honored to be joined by the man himself, William Garay Jr. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tally. I appreciate that. It's always humbling to hear your own bio read back to you. It sounds great coming from your voice. Thank you.
Well, I mean, you've done so much in your life. You have lived a life of service and of dedication and sacrifice. And it was so long, I had to really minimize it down just for the bio reading. But we're going to get into what you've done, because it's very deserving of being told the type of guy you are, where you've been, and where you're going.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Again, it's surreal to hear it where we've all come from, and you're exactly right. I love to live my life through service. I love helping others, and just trying to find a way to continue to Charlie Mike.
Roger that. And for the civilians out there listening today, that is continue the mission, correct?
That is correct.
All right.
We like to really use that vernacular to make it more prominent, right? I mean, there's a lot of sayings we have in the military, but for us, Charlie Mike, especially now being a veteran myself now, is what does that embody and what does that mean? It means continue mission. It means you got to recover where you are, but we all have something larger than ourselves. We're all humans. We're all searching for our own meaning, and Charlie Mike means it's okay to take a break, take a knee, drink water, but continue to chug on, to push forward, to get better.
Roger that. Roger that. It's always good to know that you can Charlie Mike anytime you want. You can always start over. You can always get that 1% better every day. Like I like to say, when I began to turn my life around in 2019 after an injury in 2016. But listen, you are a native Houstonian, and there's nothing better than playoff baseball. The Houston Astros are already off to another World Series berth, and it's coming. We're up a game now on the Yankees. We got another one today, another exciting one down at the Juice Box, and that mustache, dude, I got to tell you, it has given me flashbacks of Raleigh fingers.
Yeah.
Raleigh finger. And folks, you are looking at this for real, man. That mustache right there, I mean, that is golden. And dude, how many times do you go out somewhere and people are just staring at you, or they just come up to you and say, dude, that's rad?
You know, surprisingly, it doesn't happen as often, but my wife and I, we just got back from Disney World last week, a couple weeks ago. And I got stopped a lot there. I really did. You know, because when you're home, you're around the same amount of people. I visited some of the same places. So folks know me from my mustache, but occasionally to get a compliment like that about it, it's nice. It's nice and it's fun. This is one of those things that I didn't really know I could grow a mustache. I didn't take it seriously until about a year or ago. And then as you get into it, you start finding more products for it. And then I kind of just really came known for it.
Man, I tell you what, man, that is the coolest mustache. And you know, you were probably getting stopped at Disney World because they probably thought you were a character. They're like, hey, I want to take a picture with this guy. I think he's in one of the movies. Oh my God. I mean,
you know, my daughter was like, you should be Captain Hook this year. And I was like, you know, it's not a bad idea. And I've got the long hair too. I was like, you know, maybe I might. I love the mustache. I'm surprised my family likes it so much. My wife puts up with it, so I'm going to keep growing it out as long as she can.
Well, listen, I'm a big fan as well. I think that's amazing. I think it's a hot topping, a talking point there. And again, it's finding those commonalities sometimes that creates that dialogue for a simple conversation. And you never know who you may reach by just having a simple mustache, right? So, anyways, you're born and raised in Houston, Texas, a native Houstonian. What was life like growing up as a kid for you, William?
You know, it's a cursing and a blessing. My parents are very young. They were 19 and 17 when I was born. So, you know, they're less than 20 years older than I am. And so the curse of it is I have young parents growing up. And it was difficult. We moved around a lot. My dad's a Marine himself. So he served the first 4 years of my life. I did live in California for a little while he was stationed out there. But again, young parents trying to become adults themselves, taking care of a child, it's just difficult. Nothing too traumatic, but we all have our own childhood traumas. But now, of course, reflected on it, I absolutely love that my parents are young. I get to spend a lot of time with them. They actually live down the street from us. We bought our house in 2019. And one of the things we sought out to do was make sure we're close to them because I did spend 13 years in the Army and I was away for so long. But I love Houston. I always say that I'm enamored with the city because where my grandma lives is just south of Minute Maid Park. There's an old coffee factory there called Maxwell House. It's no longer there. The building is, and she lives right down the street. So I, as a kid growing up, always loved the city of Houston. I love downtown. I was so close. And I always thought how cool it would be to work in a high rise and be there and be with in the city and the nightlife. Now I'm actually getting really, now I can actually enjoy that where I'll go out and I get to see downtown and see all the things that Houston has. And Houston is a fantastic community. It's growing. It's one of the fourth largest cities, going to be number 3. It's one of the best cities for veterans too. That list is climbing as well. I think we're number 2 for the veteran population, but we're going to get even more because a lot of the big businesses are coming here, which means there's a lot more job opportunities, which means they more than likely want to hire a veteran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you are right. Houston is a beautiful city. It is big. It reminds me of Los Angeles. I mean, really, at the end of the day, sister city, but it's way better than LA. I mean, the traffic is not nearly as bad as LA, and the people are 100 times better here, I got to say. And the skyline, I mean, it's beautiful. And we have several skylines here in Houston. You got the main downtown, and then you have the medical center, and then you have the oil and gas area, and then you have the Galleria, and you have, I mean, it's just amazing. And there's really something, for everyone here in Houston. And I know Houston and Texas has been very good to me and my family for the last 2.5 years when we decided to make that move from Southern California to Texas and to be aligned with people that we have so many commonalities with. And like you said, the veteran population, the veteran community, the proud Americans, the patriotism, and these are my people, and I love it.
Houston's a fantastic melting pot too. I think a lot of the folks from the north moved down because they're tired of the snow. I think folks come from the coast because they want to be close to the beach, even though we don't have the best ones. But it really is a huge community, and it's a great melting pot. Just different cultures there are, the different pockets. You mentioned some of the areas of the city, and everywhere you go, the one thing that unites us is our food and our cultures. And I take a lot of pride that you say that your neighbors are so welcoming to you. And I think that's a huge stamp for being part of a Texan or being a Houstonian, is making others feel welcome. We just, I don't know where exactly it comes from. And maybe it's just a constant wanting to make others feel like they're part of us. They're part of something bigger. They can contribute. And it really goes so far, even in our little neighborhoods or our pocket communities, just folks wanting to serve. And then you'll see it come out throughout some of the hardest times, like Hurricane Katrina or Ike or Harvey that came through, and everybody just really pulls together and makes sure nobody's without.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw that from my TV. A lot of those hurricanes, I believe it was Harvey. I was still stuck in a chair in my room battling my own problems in my injury. And that is one thing I took away from Houston, is that everybody was out helping. And this is when first responders couldn't get out there. I mean, everyday Houstonians taking their own personal boats out, taking their own big old lifted trucks and chains and ropes. I mean, they were out, putting on, search parties and rescuing people off rooftops. And it was a pretty awesome sight to see, for sure, a community coming together. And that's the way it should be, neighbors helping neighbors, and the community helping the community, kind of like Mattress Mac. I mean, this guy opened his doors for the people of New Orleans, even, when they were going through their problems. He is a true champion, in the community. And, I think a lot of people can learn a lot from that man.
Yeah. It's funny if folks say that. And I truly have. I went to go see him speak not too long ago at a Combined Arms luncheon. And that was brought up. They asked him, why did you open your doors? Or what thought process was going through that? And he said there was no thought process. It was just the right thing to do. And to have someone like that inside your community that is growing like that, that models that behavior, you want to do the same thing for your neighbor, even if it's on a smaller scale. It makes the same amount of impact.
Sure. Yeah. It's an instinct. If you're a good person, you're going to have that instinct. You don't got to think about it. You just do what's right. You don't have to have a board meeting and say, well, what should we do here? It's just an instinct. I'm going to make a decision because I'm a decision maker, and I'm going to move forward with it. And that's successful. That is leadership. That is what you call leadership by example. Now, I want to get into your military career. Now, you joined the Army. Why did you join the Army? And were there ever any other options for you on the table other than joining the Army?
Absolutely, there were. I joined the Army in 2005, but one of the biggest influences, I was in ROTC in high school, Army ROTC, and then my dad is a Marine. So I always grew up thinking that I would go to the Marine Corps, but being in the Army ROTC, seeing the Twin Towers fall, when I actually said, okay, now's the time for me to go, and I went and did my research, I knew I didn't have to leave immediately. I knew I had some leverage in it because they wanted us to go. So I used that to my advantage, and I did a little bit of research. I talked to almost all the services, and I went to go talk to the Marine Corps first, but the guy was locked out of his office, so so I went to go talk to the Army next. And when go ahead.
I can't believe a Marine left his post at a recruiting office. Come on.
Yeah. So this is 2005. And when I went to talk to the Army, I knew I wanted to go into the combat arms. I knew I wanted to be an infantryman, and I wanted to jump from airplanes. And they said, yeah, we can offer you all of that. Plus, we could also offer you a $20,000 bonus. So, okay, that sounds good. And I went to go talk to the Marines because that's kind of where I narrowed it down to. I was like, I'd like to go into to be an infantryman, and I'd like to get some schooling. And they're like, well, we don't do that. You get assigned your job when you get there. And I'm like, so I don't even know what I'll be. Like, no, but you get to be a Marine. It's like, okay, well, I was in ROTC. The Army says they'll let me come in as an E3, which is a pay grade, which means we get more money. And they were like, Marine Corps says, no, you can only come in as an E2. I was like, okay, so a little bit more money, the job I want. I said, well, the Army also says they'll give me a bonus. Like, oh yeah, we don't do that here. You get to be a Marine. Okay, well, that's not really enough for me. I'll go join the Army.
Yeah, I mean, you could have gotten stuck peeling potatoes.
Yeah.
For all we know. So at least you were doing the cool stuff, jumping out of airplanes, and a paratrooper, an
And that's the other thing.
infantryman.
I got to go to the school, and I wanted as well. I got to right after basic training. I was set up for airborne school, even though I didn't become go to the 82nd until later. But I got to go to the school right away, and it was fantastic. It was definitely the right decision for me. Again, I had that desire, that drive to be an infantryman. It's what I wanted. I wanted to go. I wanted to shoot the guns and do all the high speed stuff and be there on the front line.
Staff Sergeant.
Yes.
Staff Sergeant William Garay Jr., an infantryman, a paratrooper, a combat veteran. 13 years you would spend in the Army. Do you have a proud moment that stands out to you?
Absolutely. The biggest moment that stands out to me actually has nothing to do with wearing the uniform. A little bit, but nothing to do with either being deployed or on an exercise. At the 82nd, they have what's called ACF. So it's a quick reaction force. The 82nd prides itself on being one of the units that at any moment within 18 hours, we can put boots on the ground. That's the whole point of us being paratroopers, being able to jump from airplanes, is they can put us on a plane and they can deliver us anywhere in the world so that we can start fighting and doing combat almost immediately. But every unit goes on rotation. We were on ACF, which means we couldn't leave more than an hour, more than 30, 45 minutes from our base. And that week was actually Thanksgiving. So for Thanksgiving, none of us could go home. None of us could be around our families because it was our turn in the chute. So I invited all of my platoon as a staff sergeant to come have Thanksgiving dinner with us. My parents helped out. They sent us some money. We cooked 3 turkeys. My wife made a bunch of potatoes. We had bought some sides, and 20 dudes, all males, right, came over to our house and had Thanksgiving lunch dinner with us, with my wife and our 3 kids at the time. That Thanksgiving sticks out the most to me. If I reflect on it now, it really proved to me that I had the stuff to be that type of leader, to let my folks know, my soldiers know, our paratroopers know that somebody within this platoon cares about them enough to make sure they get fed a home cooked meal, welcome them to their house. And I had fantastic leaders like that did the same thing for me, and it really showed on that day.
Something like that can change the life of a junior soldier. You opened your doors. And as you're telling this story right now, perhaps one of your former soldiers is on the podcast saying, I had this staff sergeant one day. That, I mean, it's the little things in life. It's not the big things, really. It's just a bunch of little stuff that just adds up, and it just what makes life, right? I mean, it's, and like you said, I mean, you're a combat veteran. You spent 13 years in the Army. I'm like, hey man, what's a proud moment? Hey, it was what I did with my soldiers on a special day that I wanted to open my doors and offer them some meals and to offer them some guidance and show what true leadership is, and sharing that fellowship. And
It means so much to them. I know a few of them have reached out and said that that was one of their best Thanksgivings too. And of course, I'm their senior by 10, 15 years, and it's humbling to know that you can have an effect on this person's life that, was may not have been in my direct chain of command, right? He wasn't in my squad, but they were in my platoon and they knew what type of leader I was. And that to me really resonates, especially with who I am now and what I'm trying to accomplish and where I'm trying to go. I know that that's what mattered most, was leading with heart, was putting the proof in the pudding, was making sure that I did exactly what I was going to say and doing that for them. And it really was one of the best Thanksgivings I could remember. And my daughter, oh man, she was 7 at the time, and she remembers. She was like, "That was really cool," and it's a special holiday for us now because we can remember that, all of our family.
yeah, you followed through. Follow through is the most important thing in life. Um, Now, you had mentioned, your daughter, being 7 years old, and you got a wife, got some kids, and you were also an active duty soldier. Describe the sacrifice of serving overseas or deploying and leaving your loved ones behind. What does that sacrifice feel like? What does that sacrifice look like?
It's even more truer now, but the days are long, but the years fly by. So when you're deployed, you really get into a routine. It's about the folks around you. It's about how do I get past this time. Being, I learned to be really hyper vigilant when I was there. There's this the routine you go through, putting on your gear or getting ready to check out of the gate to get into that rhythm, that flow, that high state for us. But it is difficult. Uh, well, I do have 4 kids. My older 2 were from my ex-wife, and they were born in Georgia, and then my son was born in San Antonio. And
Hmm.
I only had my daughter for one of my deployments. I did do 2. My first one was in 2007 for 15 months, so I came back in 2008, and the second one was in 2010 to 2012, and that was 12 months. But
Hmm.
being away, it's difficult. It really is. There's a lot of strain. You go through a lot. Plus, we're so young when we deploy. The development that we get, it's amazing to hear that our brain doesn't start developing until we're 28. That's our fully developed brain. And I was like, I did both my deployments while my brain's still developing. Uh, so you become a different person on these deployments because of what you see. Uh, when you come home, nobody can really relate to you, and then when you get back, almost everybody scatters, right? You're either going to different platoons, you've either got promoted, or you're going to a different duty station. And now all of those men and women that you shared that close space with that gets you, you're no longer around them. And
Hmm.
that's difficult, not only through deployment, but also through the transition out.
So your experience in the Army, would you say that it was a successful experience?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always like to
Hmm.
say that when somebody joins the military, they're always for good things, generally, even if you're trying to uh, escape going to jail, which isn't true anymore. But even if you're trying to get out of your place, if you're trying to get better education, whatever it is, you're trying to do better, and the military offers you that route. One of the things that isn't shined light upon more of are the soft skills that develop when we're in. We learn how to get the mission done. We learn tenacity, resiliency, discipline, all the little things that contribute to being a successful person are instilled in you in the military. One of the things that the military does well is teaching servant leadership. And
Hmm.
this term is relatively new, and a lot of organizations want to bring it forth, but the military taught it, has been teaching it for years. It's always about others. It's always about the greater mission. What can I do next? How do I chase the next rank, the next school, the next mission? How do I accomplish this better? How do I make sure that my Joes or my folks are getting promoted too? Are they getting taken care of? It's always about others. And if we can do that, then we can take care of too. So it's very successful. I absolutely love my time in the military, as small of a time as it was. Even 13 years is just a short blip compared to we live 80, 90 years, 10% of my life.
But it's something that, you'll never forget. Sometimes the best and worst days of your life, and that camaraderie will last a lifetime. There's World War II veterans that served 2 years, but they saw 2 years of heavy combat, and now these guys are in their late 90s, and they're wearing that World War II veteran hat. And it doesn't matter 13 years, 2 years, 4 years, 20 years, 30 years. Once you serve your country, you're a changed man, or a changed woman. And, that's just how it is. It's that serving. It's that camaraderie. It's that bridge building, and it's learning how to fight, and it's learning how to work as a team and structure, like you said, the discipline, the resilience, the soft skills. So that always stays with you. Now, military transition strategist, when you got out of the Army, you were like, I still want to serve, and I'm going to serve my community. Describe what you do as a military transition strategist.
So when I got out, it was in 2018, and one of the things that I did right away was I went to work. My transition plan sucked. I didn't have a whole lot of money in savings. I was moving back home with my wife and 4 kids. And I said, I got to get to work. That's what's needed of me. I got to make sure I have steady income, housing. So I did. But I went to work at a warehouse, which is a fantastic company. They took me in, they helped me. But again, I had to work at a warehouse, which I a little bit of arrogance, but I knew I could do more and be more. I just didn't want to start at the bottom, but I had to. Through this time is when my things really started to change. I needed to take better control of my life. So I did, with the help of my wife, of course. But I did. One of the things that we had to do was get our finances in line. So we started eliminating debt, following Dave Ramsey's principles, because it wasn't like I got out in 2018 and I just became this expert in the field. I had to go through a lot of struggle to figure this out. I had to figure out, how am I going to pay for this? Am I making enough money? What are my actual goals? What do I want to do with it? How do I put this money to use for me, for us, for our family? And it wasn't until 2 years later where I got introduced to Impact a Hero, because I was discovering more about finances. And Impact a Hero, somebody had shared on LinkedIn that they had a class. So I took the class. I was intrigued by what they were teaching because it was Dave Ramsey stuff. And I said, how do I get involved with this organization? Because I see what you're doing for veterans. I see what you're doing for me. And that volunteer turned into part-time, which turned into full-time. And through that year and a half I was with Impact a Hero, you just find that a lot of veterans are going through the same issues you are. And sometimes they just need a little bit of guidance or a little bit of encouragement. Most times both. They need a plan to follow. And I said, okay, how can I really dig into this more? So I began taking on and helping and coaching veterans with their finances. Because for me, when I got my finances aligned, everything else started to follow. After being with Impact a Hero for a year and a half, in May of this past year, my wife and I paid off all of our debt. We're debt-free except our mortgage. So I am a disabled veteran, and with the disability, we also have a small business. Between our small business and my disability, I make enough money that I don't have to work every single day of my life. And I want everyone to hear this. The truth is, I only make the American average, which is about $60,000 a year. Right now, at the moment, that's about what I'm making. Okay, it varies depending on how much we make from our snow cone business. But we all think that we have to take a 6-figure job, or we are worth a 6-figure job to be happy. We have to make millions of dollars to be happy. But that's not what I like to talk about when it comes to being a transition strategist. I want you to know that it's what makes you happy. You can make $60,000 a year, be committed to your mission, and be happy every single day of your life. That's what it's about. So when I left my job in May, right after I paid off all of our debt, I wanted to make sure that there's veterans that they know what you're in charge of your transition. You've got to be accountable for it. I understand you got to work a 9 to 5 sometimes, because I did it. I understand that you may want to give back to a nonprofit, which I did it. I understand that you may want to go work for big corporate. Great. Let me help you put a plan together so you can follow these steps and then be successful.
Folks, you heard it there from William Garay Jr. himself. Let him help you build that blueprint. Folks, it's a blueprint and it's a plan. And that is what you need in life when you get out of the military. A lot of people have a hard time transitioning, and folks like William are here to help you. And like you said, look, I had to fix myself first.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, look, it didn't come overnight. And it wasn't easy. But you had to go through the process to fall down, to get back up, dust yourself off, and to what? Charlie Mine.
That's right.
To continue the mission. And you took good counsel from Dave Ramsey. You took a blueprint that worked for you, and you configured it to your own daily life and to your own finances, to your own custom plan. And and then that's what makes you good at what you do, because you've been through it, and you know it works because you lived it. And it didn't come overnight because you had to learn how to do it. So that's what makes an expert an expert. Mm-hmm. 10,000 hours, folks, is all it is to become an expert. If you put 10,000 hours into anything, you will become an expert. And this guy has well over 10,000 hours in helping military folks transition into building their blueprint on living a successful life after the military. And folks, you don't need to be in the military to get this advice.
That's right.
You could be out of college, and you're like, oh man, I'm swimming in debt. What do I do? Call Willie, because he will be able to help you out to put your train on the tracks and headed directly for success. Now, you've had some life challenges. Who do you credit? Who do you lean on for support when you were going through some of your life challenges? And you still may be going through some today. Who do you lean on, William?
I'm blessed with an amazing wife. So again, when we transitioned, her and I were going through some issues, mostly me, right? I'm the one going through the issues. And there was a point in life where she left me and the kid, and she took the kids, and she says, there's only one person that can fix this, right? I don't know who you are. I know you're not the man I married. You're so much better than this. Only you can fix this. And I don't know why, but that resonated with me finally, right? To say, I can fix this. I can fix this. Literally, it's me. I can fix this. So I started going to counseling. I got some mental health, some brain health, whatever you want to call it. And I went for several weeks. As I worked more on myself, I became a better leader. I became better at finances. I became a better father. And it's amazing how that works, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, immediately, I always turn to my wife. And I've told this story before, and I tell her all the time, just thank you for always being there, for believing in me.
Mm-hmm.
We had no idea that all of this was in the cards, right? But she was there. She said it. Only you can fix this. And that was the advice that I like to give everybody else now. Like, wherever you are, you can fix this. And the more I read books, the more I learn about leadership and what it takes to have the right mindset, they all echo each other. Self-help, it's all about you fixing this, you getting better. Once you take ownership of that, you stand back, you're the one that's in charge, and you can do some amazing things.
There's so many people out there that are living this victim mentality. And I'll admit, I was that guy in 2016 and 2017 in 2018 until 2019. I said, this ain't me. I'm a motivator, and I got to get back to who I was prior to January 2016. And I realized that nobody was coming to save me. And I got a wife of well over 20 years. I got 4 beautiful kids. And yes, some bad things happened to me due to no fault of my own. But once I realized that nobody was coming to save me, and I had to save myself, that's when I started to put in the work. That's when I turned that victimhood. I turned my victim card in for my accountability card. And folks, in the United States of America, you can do whatever you want in this country. Everybody has opportunity. It's how you package it. It's the vehicle you put it in and where you want to go. It's the work you put in that's going to make you who you are. It's going to define who you are in the long run. Now, I could have stayed in my chair forever and stayed a victim and become 400 pounds and feel sorry for myself. I still would be battling the same pain I am today.
Mm-hmm.
When you live in physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, and you got to take the meds, and you have to dig deep every day. Well, it's better to do it when you're living in a body that is happy. Even though, see, pain is so much easier to manage when you're happy, and you can have both. You can be happy and still suffer with pain, but when you're sad and depressed, that pain, it will compound like interest, and you will sometimes not make it out of the storm, folks. It's real. Life is hard. Life is hard. I never thought I would ever see it out of my storm. But I did. And folks need to know that it takes hard work to get to that next step in life. And sometimes God puts you through these processes and through these hardships as a test. So now I can help so many people. Now look at you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think a lot of us, especially as veterans, we try to see that who else went through something similar, right? Like, how do we talk to our seniors, our certain first class, our first sergeants. Okay, how did you get there so that I can learn to be there? But we get lost when we actually need the most help. Like, hey, I transitioned, right? That guy's being successful. How do I be like that guy? Because we're all dealing with our struggles, with our pains. I mean, I'm dealing with them constantly sometimes. But it's about your mindset. And one of the things I have to say is it's about who you surround your people with, who you surround yourself with. You know, if you're going to be around like-minded, you're going to be around like-minded people one way or another. And if the people that you're around are being victims themselves, then it makes sense for you to be that. And if you don't want that mindset anymore, change your circle. Start there. You know, I mean, you and I both know I got around Raul, and look, now I'm behind a mic, right? Why? Because Raul's a podcaster. Raul does a lot of good things for his community.
He does.
Well, guess who's around his circle all the time? Everybody knows it. It's me, you know, but that's on purpose. I wanted to be around this person. I want to be more like that. So how do I do that? I enter his circle until he tells me to go away. He hasn't done that yet, though. Thankfully.
You know, you bring up a great point. It's something I learned in Mighty Oaks when I went through their program in 2019. You gotta hang out with equally yoked people. And I don't mean weights and buffness, equally yoked. Somebody that you can lean on, your wingman, if you will, right? Your brothers in the trenches. And what I've told my kids their entire life, and I've been blessed with 4 beautiful kids, and they're educated, and they're athletes, and they're just beautiful, just great-hearted kids. But my wife and I raised them that way because we're in their lives constantly, and we've always given them that good leadership and that good counsel. Even though during some of the hardest times of my life, that's what got me out of my chair, because I'm like, man, my kids are watching me. I've got to set this example. But I've always told them this: you are who you roll with. If you roll with thugs and if you roll with people that are losers, you're going to become one. Mm. You're going to be one. If you hang out with alcoholics, you're going to be one. If you hang out with guys that put needles in their arm, you're going to be one. Because that's just the way it is. If you hang out with successful people, you're going to be one. Mm. You are who you roll with. It does matter. And I'm sure a lot of people with addiction could testify to that and call it true. Because once you cut those ties and say, I want to get 1% better, I want to change my life, and I put that bottle down, or I stop hanging out with those people, guess what? Those friends say goodbye to you. Mm. That's when you enter that new circle. That's when you're equally yoked, because now you have the same mission. You have the same goals. You have the same drive. You guys feed off of each other. And that's what makes you grow and evolve into the men you are today.
That's what's hard about military transition. So when we think of the military transition, it's going from active duty to becoming a veteran. So more than likely you're moving back home. But the reason why I say what I love to do as a transition strategist is because it applies to anybody, right? If you're going from college and you're moving back home, or you're trying to move into a new field, switchers trying to get to a different job. But the biggest issue with veterans or military coming back to being a veteran is you get reinserted to your old group, right? Mm-hmm. I don't have many friends from high school, especially after 13 years. I only have a couple that I really keep in touch with. It's not like they live close to me. So whenever you come back, it's like it's difficult to have a supporting cast around you. That's why it's so important for you to get involved with those nonprofits that are in your area. If they're smaller, like a VFW or an American Legion, or they're large, like we have here in Houston in Combined Arms, Impact a Hero. When I inserted myself into that conversation, then I started to see this whole group of veterans that are thriving and growing. And I'm like, I didn't even know this was out here. I didn't hear this story enough, like, of the successful veteran. There's so many of us that are in business, that are in Congress or in the government, and whether it be state or federal. And then there's so many of us that are within large companies. I just got off a call yesterday with Oxy, and they have a veterans group, and you're just like, man, a lot of these folks look just like me. I could do any of it. None of them were engineers. None of them were in oil and gas, obviously, before. They were all in the military doing their jobs, but they had the skills that transferred into true leadership, servant leadership. So again, if you are transitioning, if you're getting ready to get out, get connected to wherever the veteran group is. If you're coming to Houston, you've got two men right here that would be more than happy to answer your call, or just chit chat with you to figure out, hey, what's next for me? Who should I get in touch with? How do I get involved? Because for us, it's all about service. If you can get back to giving back, you'll see yourself grow.
Beautifully said. Now we get into the fun part. No, it's all been fun. I'm just kidding. Guys, I started a podcast 70 days ago, and it was put on my heart, literally by God, on a mindfulness walk. I'm new to this game, but I got to know Raul, who is the creator, if you will, of Charlie Mike, the podcast. And he had me on as a guest twice. And he helped get the word out about the tally bill. And he sent me some awesome shirts, well over a year and a half ago. He bought a book. He has supported the tally bill. He has supported me. He has welcomed me to Houston. And now I want to do the same, but we're switching seats. And I know you're Raul's co-host on Charlie Mike, the podcast. You guys have a great veterans podcast. You have on a great guest, and this is educating. These aren't guys that are sitting behind the mic, drinking beer and taking shots of scotch and all this stuff and being silly, and they're selkies. Hey, those are great podcasts too. But if you're looking for education and good advice from two men that have been in the trenches and have worked their way all the way up through programs like the Veterans Court, guys.
Mhm.
Okay, and just doing the right thing, living life to its fullest potential. These are the guys that you're going to want to tune into. Charlie, Mike, the podcast. I want to know from you, how did you become a co-host on Raul's show?
Well, like I mentioned, I hounded him until he told me, "Okay, yes, you can come on." So about a year ago, I had the idea of starting my own podcast too, and I didn't really know where to start. And I promise you, when you start talking about things and you start bringing it into focus, it goes right along the line of that victim card, that mentality. If you start changing what you're thinking, what you're talking about, that's what you start to see and come around you.
Mm-hmm.
So I said I wanted to be a podcaster. I wanted to learn more, and sure enough, Raul showed up on a Houston Regional Veterans Chamber of Commerce meeting, which is a fantastic group too, and it was a small group. Actually, it was an off day, so it was just kind of him and I. And we're like, yeah, let's connect. So eventually, we did connect in a few months, and I talked to him. I told him my idea about a podcast and where I wanted to go, and he was like, "Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll have you come on as a guest first, so
Mm-hmm.
you can see how it runs, and then if it really interests you, then I'll help you start your podcast." It's okay, cool. So of course we know holidays go by, and finally in February, we kept in touch, and he came over for a crawfish boil, and he said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't you come on the podcast on Thursday?" Sweet. So him and I had really good chemistry. We're opposites, but we have a very, very similar mindset of where it is we are trying to help this veteran community, especially here regionally within Houston. So we had our first podcast in February together. I was on as a guest. And the next week, we had a mutual contact come on. He's like, "Why don't you come help me co-host this?" And then I just kept showing up. He said, "Okay, well, I'll make you a co-host." It's
Man, that is so cool.
it, it is. It's he we developed a chemistry on camera, and we've learned a lot about each other on camera. Like we didn't realize we both served in the third ID right around the same time frame, and it
Mm-hmm.
came about because we were both on camera. Because when we're on the podcast, it's really not about us. It's about trying to tell the story of our guest that's on, trying to really support veteran-owned businesses, support the veteran organizations that are in town, and to show that a lot of veterans are dealing with the same issues that we all deal with. We're all dealing with some type of legal. Sometimes we're dealing with alcohol issues, depression, PTSD, addiction, whatever it may be. There's a veteran that's going through it, and we like to highlight the triumphs over it, so that a
Mm-hmm.
veteran on the other side can see, look, there's that one person that looks just like me, that was an infantryman, that was a fueler, that was a medic, and they are thriving now, even though they had really dark times, because we
Mm-hmm.
all go through our dark times. But it's about continuing the mission. It's about Charlie, Mike. How do I get better? How do I get to the
Mm-hmm.
next thing? And for us, it's showcasing these stories of veterans that we find to let folks know it's okay to take a knee. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay there. Reach out for help, which gives me a good plug. Make sure you guys know that the crisis hotline is 988. And if you're a veteran, press 1, 988. But it's about continuing the mission in Charlie Mike. That's what we love to do. We're about 50 episodes in. We're going to close one of the seasons and start the next season with just a reinvigoration for both of us of how do we showcase the story of a triumphant veteran that has overcome addiction, that has overcome his legal troubles, that made that successful transition to wherever they're being, so that we can let them know that there's a community of us out here that are thriving. We want you to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Again, it is having, in order to help people at their lowest moments, you have got to have been through your lowest moment of your life. And that's where a lot of counselors aren't successful with their patients. because their patients have hit rock bottom while the counselor hasn't. So, how can that counselor guide me and counsel me on my problems if they haven't been in my shoes? And that's where you and Raul can come into play on so many different subjects.
Right.
So many different subjects to say, you know what? I've been in your shoes. This is my story. And let me show you what I did. Again, it's about building that blueprint. It's about getting that opportunity, that second opportunity, that third opportunity, that second chance to prove your worthiness. But again, guys, it doesn't come. No one's going to come save you. You have to put the work in. You have got to put the work in. Again, it's like being that 400-pound man. Okay? I mean, you've got to get out and walk. You got to put down the chips. You got to help yourself because nobody else is going to help you. You are your biggest advocate in life. If you cannot advocate for yourself, nobody else will. And that's what you guys need to learn about this is that you got to help yourself. But guess what? You have so many men like Raul and William to lean on, to ask them for help, to get that transition.
And it starts small. It's small things. For me, when I really, really needed to get back, because I needed to lose some weight, when I really needed to get back into the shape of things, I would wake up 5-10 minutes earlier, walk outside, and then walk around the block for 5 or 10 minutes. Right. Mm-hmm. That was my routine. And that's where I started, was just walking. And then, I would do a little bit of exercise in the morning. Then Raul was like, hey, come do a hot works with me. And now I would do a 15-minute session in the hot works gym. Now I'm doing an hour in the gym, but I didn't start there. Right? I didn't start at an hour in the gym. So it's your little bitty habits that you can do over time will compound to get you to where you are. So if you are struggling, if you want to get out of debt, if you're trying to get fit, just do one small thing and apply it, and then continue to build on that because you are the habits that you keep.
Get 1% better each day. And I'm so glad in 2019, I said, man, I got a lot of work to do. Mm. And it gave me anxiety to think about how far I let myself go. And I said, okay. What if I just do 1% better? What if I just, and again, it is those little things. It's like a large room, right? And you've got, 800 square feet. So you're going to need 800 tiles to get this room done. But you can only get one tile per day. How are you going to lay those tiles? How are you going to lay that foundation? Well, you're going to take your time and you're going to make sure that each one of those tiles are going to go down perfectly. Because you've only got one tile. You're not going to lay all 800 square feet in one day. So when you get done in 800 days, which is only a couple of, 2.5 years, you're going to find yourself living a different life. You're going to find yourself living a life of gratitude. And I tell you what, folks, I know it because I've done it. I've been there. And I want to plug another thing that you guys do that I believe in. Charlie Mike has a clothing line. And check this out, guys. Look at this. Hard times will pass. I never thought they would. I was in a storm for years. But folks, they will. Look at this. Charlie Mike, military apparel, guys.
Yeah.
Get connected with these guys right here. They make clothes, they make shirts, and it's all veteran stuff. And guys, it's going to a great cause. These guys give so much back to the Houston community. They give back so much to Texas. And they give back so much to the United States of America, folks. And these are the guys that have sacrificed for you here in the United States of America to keep us free, to keep us prosperous, and keep that Liberty Bell ringing. Tell me a little bit about your clothing line.
So we appreciate that. Thank you. Charlie Mike Military Apparel was started by Raul, and this was with 2018 till 2018. And it wasn't until the pandemic hit where the podcast came about, where he needed a resource to continue to talk. And it's a lifestyle. Really, it's Charlie Mike, continue mission. How do I not only find ways for myself to get better, but how do I help others along the process? Because it ain't no fun unless everybody else is shining up here with you too. Raul's huge on that. He's told me that so many times. Just it's not fun driving a Lamborghini by yourself. Everyone's like, "Oh, I'll be sad in my Lamborghini." No, that sucks, man. That's sadness. But
Dude,
Charlie Mike is about the apparel side. Like, hard times will pass. I love the shirt. It's okay to not be okay. I like to get compliments on that shirt because it's letting folks know, yep, the 22 until none. It's continuing to get better, and so are we. We've actually just been added to the GovX website. So if you are military or law enforcement, first responder, teacher, and you have access to the GovX website, you can get your, I believe it's 20% off. So you can go there to get your clothing or your apparel lines, or you could always go to CharlieMikeMilitaryApparel.com. And I believe through the end of the month, we're doing free shipping with the promo code Charlie Mike. It's fun. We also have coffee on there because Chris McLean is a good friend of ours, and so he'll make our coffee for us. And it's trying to get better, right? Because the purpose. I love that you brought up Mattress Mac. Mattress Mac was a local Houstonian, right? Gives so much back, and we want to be on that same page. We want to be able to give back as much as we can, 22%, because that number resonates with a lot of us. But in order for us to do that, we have to be really good at what we do. We have to be able to build a business. We have to be able to make money because you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot give unless I have money to give. And our house has to be straight, of course. And for us, we just believe in this product line. I love wearing the shirts because when I put one on, I know there's no quit in me. I have to live what's right by this brand, by this shirt. Whenever I'm on the podcast, whenever I represent Charlie Mike, I have to let everybody know that I myself am getting better. I can't just go out there and talk about it. I have to be about it. I have to show it through my actions. And that's what we love about Charlie Mike. It really is. It's a culture for us. It's a way of life.
If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. You got to be fully engaged. You got to be all in. And a lot of the times it's an obsession. And this is a good obsession. It's good to have obsessions. And I tell people this all the time. They're like, oh, you're obsessed? That's bad. Oh, no, it's not. It's obsessed if you're obsessed with something that's bad. But if you're obsessed with something that's good, to me, that's awesome.
Yeah. Again, when you start to talk about something, you see it all the time. And for me lately, it's been leadership. And when I went to Disney World, all I saw was leadership everywhere because it's what I focus on. And I was like, can you imagine the vision of this man, Walt Disney, to build this place that 50 years later, his legacy is still going, right? And Raul, I talk about that. Where can we go? How can we build this brand to be around for 50 years? Knowing that it's going to take a lot of work now, but if we can lay down the foundation to make Charlie Mike not just a military term, to be a term that's used for breast cancer awareness, right? For folks who have overcome addiction. And you know what? I did what I had to do to Charlie Mike. That's what we see. Yes, it resonates with the veteran community, law enforcement, first responders, but Charlie Mike is still so much more. Those communities are important to us, right? Obviously, we'd like to take care of those too. But it's about the overall theme, the overall vision for us. How do we, Charlie Mike, how do we make Charlie Mike appeal to everybody, but especially those who are stuck or who are in a rut and who are looking up? And if I've been there, I'm going to be able to reach back and give you that hand up to let you know this was the blueprint that I did. Let me show you the way. You've got to do the work, okay? I can't just pull you up by yourself.
Yeah, we're not going to do it for you.
Yeah,
but listen, William, this has been a great interview, man. And we sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do for our great nation, and in the military and veteran community. Our country cannot thank you enough for your honorable service, sacrifice, and dedication to our great nation.
I appreciate that, Tally.
Yes, sir. Until next time, for Tuesdays with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God bless.